Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. Ethan's phone lit up between our plates right after the toast. My name is Maya. I was 26 that night. The screen flashed once, then dimmed like it knew I was watching. I did that fake casual lean forward, like I was moving my glass. I still remember the exact line that almost stopped my breathing. I caught it before his thumb hit the screen and buried it. I wish I could celebrate with you tonight too. No emojis, no name, just that sentence like a fist to my chest. My smile froze and I kept chewing even though everything inside me lurched. Ethan moved faster than I had ever seen during dinner. He flipped the phone face down and laughed way too loudly. Relax, that was just Sam from the gym messing around. That is what he tossed out while he reached for his drink. I laughed too because arguing over a text on our anniversary felt crazy. Back then I told myself I believed him, and for a minute I did. I picked up my own phone like I suddenly needed to check something. Curiosity dragged my gaze back to his screen, and the contact name hit me. The name was not Sam at all, and there was a heart. I told myself maybe he just changed it as a joke, but my stomach had other ideas. You look weird right now, like you saw a ghost. Ethan grinned like this was a joke, like my face amused him. Do you seriously not trust me for 2 seconds? I rolled my eyes and tried to sound bored because jealousy felt embarrassing. If it is just Sam, then show me. The thread sat on my tongue. Instead, I joked back about him having a secret fan club somewhere in town. He loved that line and leaned in across the table and kissed me. There it was, the move that always shut me up when I had doubts. Part of me relaxed and told the rest to stop making drama in public. Another part kept replaying that heart by the name and would not calm down. On the drive home, I watched the glow from his screen in the dark car. He used the navigation app as an excuse to keep it in his hand. Every time a notification popped up, he tilted the phone just out of my view. You are really quiet tonight, Maya. His voice tried to sound casual and did not land. I told him I was just tired from work and the whole anniversary build-up. That sounded smooth enough, and he relaxed and turned the music up a little. Inside my head, I was already planning how to get his phone alone. As I write this now, I almost laugh at how polite my first plan was. Back then, I still thought I would find nothing and owe him an apology. He tossed his keys on the counter and his phone on the couch like always. I heard the shower start and my heartbeat decided this was my chance. My legs moved before my brain caught up, and suddenly I was holding it. The screen woke up to the lock code and 4 bland little dots stared back. I knew his birthday and his old passcode, but nothing opened and panic climbed higher. He had changed it recently and never mentioned it, which sounds minor on its own. At the time, I convinced myself it was about work stuff or security. Now I hear the water running in that memory, and I know better. That new code sat between us like a locked door I had never noticed. I put the phone back exactly how it had landed and crawled into bed shaking. He came to bed smelling like soap and kissed my shoulder like nothing was wrong. I turned toward him and pretended to be half asleep so I would not talk. When his breathing evened out, mine did the opposite and started racing under the covers. I replayed that message and the fake name and every late-night call he had taken. By the time morning showed up, I had decided I would stop asking and start finding proof. The moment the door clicked behind him, I went for the laptop. My heart was already racing before I even touched the bag. He had left it on the chair like always, zipped halfway open. I told myself this was just to calm my mind, not to destroy my life. I flipped the lid and the screen woke up on its own. No password prompt, no delay, just his desktop staring back at me. For a second I froze because getting in that easily felt like a trap. If he walked back in right, then I had no excuse and nowhere to hide. I listened for his steps in the hallway and heard nothing. He had gone down to start his car and grab something from the trunk. That gave me maybe 3 minutes or maybe 30, I had no idea. I opened the browser and clicked the first tab before I could rethink. His email sat open because of course it did, he trusted his own space. I searched his inbox for the fake gym name he had thrown at me. Dozens of messages popped up from the same contact with different subject lines. Seeing that list felt worse than the text at dinner by far. Most of the messages were short and flirty and recent. Little things about missing him, random jokes, quick plans for later. They read like the kind of messages you send someone you know by heart. I scrolled fast, trying to reach the first one. Before he came back, I caught the sound of a door somewhere in the building and almost shut everything. Instead, I jumped to another tab and opened his map history with shaky hands. There was a timeline feature I had never used on my own account. His looked like a dotted diary of everywhere he slept and lied. One address showed up over and over like a pattern I could not unsee. Same part of town, same block, same late nights when he claimed overtime. The map showed weekend mornings at that place too, while I thought he was visiting family. I clicked one of the days and watched the route trace itself like a confession. My brain started playing defense even while the facts stacked up. Maybe it was a friend who needed help, maybe someone went through something heavy. Maybe he had not told me because it was private and not his story to share. Every maybe sounded weaker than the white line on that route. Another sound in the hallway yanked me back to the present moment. I closed the map and opened our shared streaming account like that had been my plan. If he walked in, I wanted something harmless on the screen, nothing sharp. I heard the building door slam and waited for his key in our lock. Nothing, silence stretched, then my phone buzzed on the table. Running late, heading straight to the office, love you. That message bought me more time and took away my last excuse. I went right back to the map because I was done pretending. This time I checked the dates next to that repeating address. They lined up with every time he had canceled plans with me last minute. Workout with the guys, extra shift, his brother needing help with something. I remembered each excuse like a row of cheap props suddenly falling apart. I left the map open and switched to his banking app through the saved login. My fingers hesitated over the mouse for a second, then moved anyway. The transaction list loaded with a neat row of charges and tidy labels. My chest tightened because money does not lie when people do. There were restaurant charges across town on nights I had eaten frozen leftovers alone. 2 movie tickets on evenings when he told me he was exhausted and stayed in. Hotel stays that matched those repeated map trips almost perfectly. Every line item was another little knife sliding into the picture. I clicked one of the hotel charges and checked the date again. That night I had sent him a long message asking if we were doing okay. He had replied with some tired emoji and blamed stress for being distant. Now I stared at the charge and realized I had been comforting a man on vacation. For a second I considered taking screenshots and emailing them to myself. Then a louder part of me whispered that I still could be wrong somehow. If I grabbed proof too early and confronted him, he would flip the script. I closed the banking tab and swallowed hard, not ready to be the crazy girlfriend yet. I went back to his inbox and this time I searched the hotel name. Threads popped up that mentioned that place like it was their regular spot. Little things like your favorite place, our usual room, our weekend plan. My hand actually jerked away from the trackpad like the words burned. I clicked into one thread and forced myself to read the newest message. Last night was perfect, wish I could wake up with you every day. Below that sat his reply from the account I was using. He called her baby, a word he had never once used for me. That detail messed me up more than the hotel or the lies. It meant there was a version of him that lived only with her. Not just cheating, but a whole separate language I never heard. I scrolled higher, chasing the moment where it might have started. The oldest message I reached before my nerves gave out was months old. She thanked him for being there for her from the beginning and not giving up. He wrote about being grateful they finally made things official after talking so long. Those lines hit me like a warning that the story went way further back. I slammed the laptop shut too hard and the noise echoed in the room. For a second I just stood there, breathing fast and staring at nothing. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and disappear before he came home. Another part wanted every detail before I burned anything down. I opened the laptop again and checked the recent downloads just in case. There were receipts, confirmations, reservations, all neat and saved in one folder. I noticed one file name with a date coming up in a few months. My thumb hovered over it, but I clicked away because I suddenly felt sick. Back then I still clung to this weird hope that it was new. Maybe this had started in the last half year and not from day one. That hope was stupid, but it kept me from falling apart on the floor. I promised myself I would go back another day and dig all the way down. Before I closed everything, I cleared the recent sites list and straightened the chair. I checked the hallway. Why again, like he might somehow have doubled back? Nothing, just the hum of the building and my pulse in my ears. I knew I had crossed a line, but I also knew he had crossed so many more. I put the laptop exactly where I found it and sat on the couch. My hands would not stop trembling, and I could not tell if it was rage or shock. I stared at the spot where his phone had lit up during that dinner. For the first time, I knew something for sure, even if I did not know how deep it went yet. 3 nights later, I opened his laptop again and went straight to that folder. My hands were steadier this time, which honestly scared me more. I was not snooping anymore just to calm myself down. I was collecting evidence, even if I still pretended I was not. The reservation files were lined up by date in a neat little column. I scrolled to the oldest one and clicked before I could lose courage. It popped open with check-in and check-out stamped at the top. The dates landed right on a weekend I remembered very clearly for another reason. That was the weekend I thought he had food poisoning and stayed at his brother's place. I had dropped off soup at his door and he never picked up the call. He texted later about falling asleep after throwing up all night. According to this receipt, he had slept in a king bed perfectly fine. I closed the file and opened the next oldest reservation in the list. That one matched a different weekend I had spent at a friend's birthday party. He had insisted he could not join because of some emergency at work. I realized I had defended that excuse to my friends like an unpaid lawyer. Have you ever watched your own loyalty play back like a bad rerun? That is what it felt like standing there with the screen glowing. Every excuse from his mouth lined up with a trip in that folder. I kept clicking, almost numb, because part of me already knew the rhythm. I needed to see how far it really went, so I changed strategy. I opened his messages again, not the inbox, the chat app on the desktop. The last conversation with her still sat near the top, of course it did. I scrolled up fast until my finger hurt, passing hundreds of little hearts. The older I went, the worse my stomach felt. There were holiday plans, inside jokes, pet names I had never heard before. She sent pictures of them at events I did not even know he attended. Everything looked settled and comfortable in a way that made me feel ridiculous. At some point, I hit the app's loading limit and it paused for a second. I used the search bar instead and typed the word anniversary. More results flooded the screen with little highlights around the word. I clicked the earliest one and braced like an idiot who still hoped. Her message was from almost 3 years back, long before that dinner. She wrote about being happy they made it another year together. He replied with some long, sentimental paragraph about how she was his constant. I stared at the date and did the math in my head twice. That message was sent the same week he asked me to be official. I actually grabbed the edge of the table because my legs went weak. You know that feeling when the room stays still but your body sways? That is how it felt when the timeline snapped into place. I scrolled a little lower and saw them planning a weekend celebration. They argued playfully over where to go and what they could afford. He promised to make it special because she deserved the world. That same weekend, I had posted a photo from our first weekend trip together. Seeing my life and her stacked like that broke something in my head. He had literally scheduled romance like shifts on a calendar. With her he wrote about forever, with me he played it casual and fun. In that moment, I stopped wondering if I was overreacting and started wondering who I had been to him. I backed out of the search and tried another word, the one that made me choke. I typed first date and hit enter before I could think again. Up came a message from her talking about the day they met at some bar. The date on that message was a few days before the night he first messaged me. He had not met me and then cheated once or twice during a rough patch. He had walked into my life already taken, like fully taken, and never mentioned it. That realization hit harder than any hotel receipt or text. I was not the main relationship he ruined, I was the side story he never owned. I wanted to throw the laptop out the window, but instead I kept digging. There was another line in that early thread where she thanked him. She wrote that she was glad they decided to be exclusive and stop seeing other people. He replied with some grand line about how she was the only one he wanted. Exclusive only, those words just sat there staring at me from years ago. On the exact same week, he told me he was not seeing anyone else either. I realized he had not lied to her when he promised commitment. He had lied to me. And he sold me the same story on a separate track. I leaned back and laughed once, that ugly sound you make when pain flips. I opened my own messages with him on my phone and scrolled to the start. Our first cheesy conversation lined up perfectly with their long-term anniversary. He had been celebrating stability and hunting for novelty at the exact same time. There is something dirty about realizing you were never the danger to his relationship. I was not the one he risked anything for, I was the distraction he protected. Every time I had worried about some random girl at a party, I had missed the real competition. The real comparison was between me and the woman who did not even know I existed. I went back to his chat with her and looked for apologies. If he had ever confessed to seeing someone else, there would be some hint. I searched for words like mistake and forgive and messed up. Nothing, just normal couple fights about chores and schedules and holidays. That emptiness told me more than any dramatic confession ever could. He never cleaned up after a slip, because in his mind there had been no slip. In his version of events, I was the invisible problem, not the infidelity. He had managed to cheat on me without ever cheating on her. The worst part is that I actually tried to find proof he hurt her too. Some twisted part of me wanted us on the same level somehow. If he had betrayed her in the same way he betrayed me, I could hate him cleanly. Instead, I found a man who saved all his reliability for someone else. I clicked on the media tab and opened the oldest photos in their thread. There were pictures of them hiking, eating together, visiting friends as a couple. The timestamps sat neatly under each one, mocking how normal they looked. I checked a few dates and matched them with nights I had eaten takeout alone. One photo stopped me cold though. They were dressed up at what looked like a wedding or some big party. The date under it was the same night I had waited for him to pick me up for a concert. That was the night he never showed and claimed his phone died in traffic. I remember sitting by my window in a new outfit, staring at my reflection. I had told myself I was being needy and accidents happen. He had walked into that other event on her arm and posed for group photos. While I watched the clock and gave him benefit of the doubt all evening. By that point my face was hot and my hands felt numb. I closed the photo viewer and went back to the main thread. I jumped randomly to messages from 1 year ago and started reading forward. I wanted to see how he balanced us when both relationships were in full swing. What I found was boring in the most painful way. Morning check-ins, updates about work, plans for dinner, reminders about groceries. They exchanged goodnight messages almost every single day, like clockwork. He and I had whole stretches with no contact after 10 at night. That contrast messed with my head more than any dramatic betrayal scene. With her he stayed consistent, with me he was flaky but charming. I realized I had spent so much time being grateful for crumbs, I never saw the pattern. He was reliable, just not for me. At one point I stumbled on the week he and I took a small weekend trip. I had saved up for it and planned every detail and felt so proud. In his chat with her that same weekend, he had called it a work outing. He texted her from the bathroom there saying he missed her and could not wait to get back. I remember how special that getaway felt to me. We had taken photos together, and I thought we were building memories. Now I saw those days again from a different screen, where I was just background noise. He had been counting down until he could return to his actual life. I kept reading until my eyes burned and the words blurred. Every new day in their history shoved me further into the role I apparently held. The secret girlfriend who was not even labeled that way out loud. Just someone he liked enough to lie to, but not enough to lose anything over. Eventually, I had to stop, not because I ran out of messages. I stopped because going any further felt like peeling skin off my own face. I already knew the shape of it now, even if I did not have every detail. They had started before me, they had stayed steady, I was the extra piece jammed in. I sat there with the laptop warm under my wrists and tried to breathe. On one hand, I wanted to slam it shut and walk out with a bag. On the other hand, I felt this cold, careful part of me wake up. That part wanted documentation, screenshots, timestamps, anything that could not be twisted. So I opened a new document and started copying lines, dates, and charges. Not everything, only the ones that lined up exactly with my own memories. The canceled plans, the imaginary emergencies, the weekends he disappeared. Every line in that file felt like a brick I could use later. I did not know yet what Ader would look like, but I knew this much. Whatever happened next, I did not want him rewriting the story. I was done letting him decide which version of events counted. If he had built two lives on top of each other, I was finally standing in the middle looking up. I started hunting for her the same night I finished the document. The laptop was still open, my notes saved, my chest buzzing. Knowing there was another woman was one thing, knowing who she was felt worse. I wanted a face, a name, something solid to push back against. I went back to their chat and opened the gallery at the top. Thumbnails filled the screen, tiny squares of their daily life together. I clicked the first one that looked like it might give me a clue. They were on a couch with a small dog pressed between them, tongues out. Her hand held the dog's collar, and I zoomed in for the tag. The name on the little metal piece was short and weird, easy to search. Under the photo, she had written a caption with that same name and a heart. I copied it into my notes because I knew exactly what I would do next. I grabbed my own phone and opened a social app, heart pounding again. I typed that dog's name into the search bar and added our city. A few random profiles showed up first, then one hit me like a slap. Her display picture matched the girl from the chat, with the same dog in her arms. I tapped her profile and everything loaded at once. Grid of photos, story bubbles, and neat little bio with a job title. Right under her name, there was a ring emoji next to the words almost wife. I stared at that tiny icon like it had teeth. My first stupid thought was that she had moved on already. That maybe she had some new guy, and Ethan was her past mistake. Then I scrolled down to the most recent post and my stomach flipped. She stood in front of a mirror in a dress, left hand raised, ring blazing. The caption started normal, then turned into the knife. I tried to read slowly, but my eyes jumped straight to his name. Can't believe I get to marry you, Ethan, future husband, best friend, everything. I locked the screen for a second because I actually felt dizzy. So he was not just balancing two girlfriends, he was engaged. To her, not to me obviously, he barely planned our weekends. Seeing the word marry next to his name did something sharp in my chest. It made all the hotel receipts feel like the warm-up before the real trick. I unlocked my phone and took a screenshot before it disappeared from my feed. Then another and another, every angle of that ring, every happy comment. People congratulated them, calling them the perfect couple and relationship goals. Reading those words, I wanted to scream in the quiet room. I scrolled back a little on her page, trying to find the announcement. There it was, a few weeks old, them standing together with a banner behind. In the picture, he leaned in and kissed her temple, smiling big. Last night I said yes, she had written, to forever with you. The date on that post landed right around one of our better weeks. He had cooked for me, brought wine, made jokes about our future trips. I remember telling a friend that something finally felt stable with us. Now I watched that same week replayed on her profile with a ring in the frame. I hated how easily I slipped into stalking mode, but I kept going. I looked through their tagged photos, checking who posted what and when. Family members had shared pictures of the two of them at dinners and parties. People called him our future son-in-law in the comments like it was already done. That part crushed me more than I want to admit. Not because I wanted his family, I barely knew them. But because I realized how privately I existed in his life. No public claims, no posts, no comments calling me anything at all. I backed out of the main feed and checked her story bubble. My thumb hovered because opening it meant she would see my username. I debated for maybe 10 seconds before closing the app entirely. If I wanted to watch her without spooking her, I needed a different approach. So I created a new account in under 5 minutes, hands strangely calm. Random name, no photo, a bio that sounded boring and real enough. I followed a few big accounts to make it look less suspicious. Then I searched her handle again and pressed follow with that burner. She had a public profile, so I could see everything immediately. This time I tapped her story and let it roll. First slide was a screenshot of a wedding checklist with items checked off. Next was a short clip of her flipping through a vendor contract at a table. I turned the volume up and listened, leaning closer without realizing. Her friend joked from behind the camera about how fast everything was moving. She laughed and said, "When you know," while flashing that ring again. Somebody off camera asked where Ethan was, and she answered without thinking. "At work, always at work." "Okay," she said, then rolled her eyes and smiled. That line made my heart clench because I had heard the same thing. Different angle, same excuse, same invisible hours he filled however he wanted. I watched her grin and realized she had no idea what that sentence really meant. Another slide showed a whiteboard with dates and vendors scribbled down. I paused and zoomed in just enough to read the wedding date. It was only a few months away, close enough to feel like tomorrow. I took another screenshot, my thumb shaking again despite all my practice. You know that moment when your brain tries to bargain with reality? Mine did that right then, rapid fire, no breaks. Maybe he planned to end things with me before the wedding started. Maybe he told himself some story where he was going to do the right thing. Even while thinking that, I knew it was garbage. If he had planned to come clean, he had plenty of chances. He could have said something any time before asking her to marry him. Instead, he bought a ring and booked venues and kept climbing on top of the lie. I went back to their chat on his laptop, needing more than happy captions. I searched their messages for the word fiancé and watched the matches load. She used it often, casually, like it had already been part of her vocabulary. He used it in short answers, but he used it, and that was enough. One line jumped out immediately. "Can't believe I get to call you my fiancé after everything we've been through." I stared at that sentence and felt this weird mix of fury and humiliation. After everything we've been through, I was literally part of that everything. I closed his laptop before I threw up on the keyboard. Walking to the bathroom, I gripped the sink and looked at my own reflection. My face looked tired and tight, the kind of tired that comes from years. That was the second I stopped thinking of myself as his partner at all. Up until that night, I still half blamed myself for not noticing sooner. It is such an easy trap, right, to think you missed some obvious sign. Staring at that ring and that date, that blame started to slide away. I could not have known because he never meant for me to know. Once that landed, something else moved into its place. Cold, practical, almost peaceful in a messed up way. If I was done trying to protect his feelings, I could focus on hers. Because she was walking straight toward a disaster she did not see. That thought stuck heavier than anything about my own heartbreak. She was not just his other girlfriend, she was building a whole legal future with him. I pictured her mailing invitations, picking songs, writing vows, or whatever. Doing all that while I sat on my couch reading proof that none of it was real. I walked back to the sofa and opened my burner account again. This time I checked who she followed and who followed her back. Through that mess of names, I found her full name on another platform. Professional profile, same face, same dog in the background of one photo. Seeing her full name written out did something strange in my chest. She stopped being just the other girl and turned into a real person. A woman with coworkers, friends, a boss, deadlines, weekend plans. Someone who might have walked past me at the market without either of us knowing. I clicked through to her work page and read enough to know her role. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized company across the city. That detail sparked an ugly little idea in my head. I realized I could contact her without mentioning him at all, at least at first. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as I opened a new message window. On the burner account, I drafted something bland and professional sounding. "Hi, I'm new in the industry and would love to ask you a few questions." I stared at it and deleted the whole thing because it felt creepy. I tried again, this time going straight to the point. "You don't know me, but I need to talk to you about Ethan." My thumb hovered over send, and my heart screamed at me to stop. If I sent that, there was no going back to pretending this was normal. I sat there for a full minute, breathing like I had just sprinted. Images flashed in my head, her reading it at her desk, ring on her hand. Her showing it to him and him spinning some story about crazy exes. Me getting blocked on everything while the wedding rolled forward anyway. So I erased that version too and went back to her work profile. This time I wrote from my actual email with my real name attached. I told her I admired her career and asked if she ever did coffee chats. It felt manipulative because it was, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. I reread the message 3 times before sending it out. It looked harmless, just another networking request from a younger woman. If she ignored it, I would figure something else out, maybe contact her sister or mom. If she answered, I would have one shot to change her entire life. The reply landed in my inbox faster than I expected. She thanked me for reaching out and said she loved talking about career stuff. She suggested a cafe near her office the following week after work. I exhaled hard because now this was suddenly real and not just a fantasy. I wrote back that the time worked and kept my tone bright. Then I closed the laptop and paced from one end of the room to the other. My brain ran through 100 possible conversations, each one worse than the last. How do you look at a stranger and tell her you sleep with her future husband? Honestly, a part of me wanted to cancel before she could confirm. To send some excuse about scheduling changes and never contact her again. I could have packed my things, ghosted him, and tried to recover quietly. For a minute, that invisible exit felt incredibly tempting, like a clean cut. But then I opened my burner account and checked her story again. She had posted a photo of a package on her doorstep, big envelope, fancy print. "Save the dates are here," she wrote, followed by way too many exclamation marks. I zoomed in enough to see their names printed together in scripted letters. I felt this wave of panic wash over me that was not about my own pain. All I saw was a clock running out faster than I had planned. Every day I stayed silent, more people would get pulled into the lie. Family booking travel, friends taking time off, money flying out for nothing. That night I wrote a second message, this time only for myself. Not sent, just typed out in a blank note like a script. I wrote the hard sentences I knew I would have to say at that table. He has been in a relationship with me for years during all of this. Reading it back to myself made my whole body shake. It sounded insane, the kind of thing you only see in messy online threads. But I had the receipts, the dates, the screenshots, all stored in a folder. That knowledge steadied me just enough to not completely fall apart. In the days leading up to that coffee, I watched her life in small pieces. Through stories and posts, I saw bits of dress shopping, cake tasting, random lists. She looked excited, tired, stressed, all the normal wedding emotions you expect. None of those clips had any shadow in them, not yet, not then. Sometimes I would almost talk myself out of telling her. Maybe I was overstepping, maybe this was not my place to blow up everything. He was the one who owed her honesty, not me, I knew that logically. But logic did not change the fact that I was the only one holding the truth. The morning of our meeting, I woke up before my alarm. My hands felt icy even though the room was warm enough. I made coffee and forgot to drink it, just watched it cool on the counter. My mind kept jumping between imagining her face and predicting his reaction. If you think I felt noble or brave in that moment, I did not. I felt sick, petty, furious, terrified, all layered on top of each other. Part of me still hoped I was wrong in some technical way I had missed. That she would show up and tell me I misunderstood everything and laugh. I knew that would not happen, but hope is stubborn. What actually waited at that cafe was a woman with a ring and a planner. Soon I would sit across from her and hand her a folder on my phone. And in doing that, I would set fire to both of our lives at once. She was already at the table when I walked in, ring catching every small movement, phone face up beside her. When her eyes met mine, I almost turned around and walked out. Instead, I sat down and wrapped my fingers around the menu like a shield. "You're Maya, right?" Her voice was friendly, curious, completely unprepared. I nodded and my throat felt dry even though I had drunk water outside. "Thanks for meeting me," I managed, which was insane given why I was there. She started with work questions, exactly like I pretended to want. Asked about my job, my boss, how I got into the field. I answered on autopilot, giving short usable details, nothing extra. The whole time I watched the ring flash when she moved her hand. After a few minutes she leaned back and smiled. "I talk too much, you can ask me stuff too." That was the opening I had been waiting for and dreading. I set the menu down and forced myself to look her in the face. "I didn't actually ask to meet you about work." Her eyebrows pulled together just a little, not full suspicion yet. "What do you mean?" I exhaled once slow, like ripping off something stuck to skin. "I need to talk to you about someone we both know," I said. She glanced at my empty hands like she expected business cards. "Is this about a job offer or something?" she asked, trying to guess. "It's about Ethan," I said, and watched all the warmth leave her eyes. For a second she just stared like she misheard me. Her fingers moved to her ring without thinking, turning it. "Ethan who?" she asked, voice flat, testing me. I said his full name and added her last name after it like a sentence. Her jaw clenched, the friendly stranger gone in an instant. "How do you know my fiancé?" she asked, quieter now. People at nearby tables kept chatting, completely unaware of my pulse. I slid my phone from my bag and unlocked the folder I had made. "I've been in a relationship with him for years," I said. The words came out steady, which surprised both of us. "I didn't know about you until recently. I only found out by accident." I turned the screen toward her and opened one of the messages. She did not touch the phone at first, just looked from it to me. "You're lying," she whispered, like she needed to hear herself say it. I didn't argue, I just scrolled to a photo of him in my kitchen. The timestamp sat under it with a date she would recognize. She reached out then, grabbed the phone, zoomed into his face. Her ring scraped the case and she did not notice. "When was this?" she asked, staring at the date underneath. I told her and then watched the calculation happen behind her eyes. "That's impossible," she muttered, shaking her head. She opened another picture and another, her breathing quickening. "That weekend he told me he was at a conference out of town." Her fingers tightened around my phone like she might crush it. "This is fake," she snapped suddenly, shoulders tense. "It has to be old screenshots or something edited." I opened my bag again and pulled out a small printed sheet. Columns of dates, locations, and charges lined up in harsh rows. "I wish I was making this up," I said, voice thinner now. "These are his hotel bookings, his location logs, our messages, all overlapping." I slid the paper across the table and waited while she scanned the lines. Her eyes stopped on one weekend and did not move. "What about this date?" she pointed, tapping a line with her nail. I checked and felt my stomach twist in a new way. "That's when he told me he couldn't visit because he had family plans." She swallowed hard, eyes wet but still reading. "He proposed to me that night," she said, almost numb. The sentence hung between us, heavier than anything on the page. For a second nobody spoke, just the noise of cutlery around us. I honestly did not know where to put my face. She dropped the paper suddenly like it burned. "Stop, just stop," she said, closing her eyes. I stayed quiet because any apology would sound insulting. When she looked up again, there was more anger than hurt. "How long have you known?" she asked, pinning me in place. "A few weeks," I answered, hands flat on the table. I spent that time checking everything, making sure I wasn't wrong. Saying that out loud made me feel guilty all over again. "A few weeks," she repeated, voice rising. "You let me plan a wedding while you made charts." That part hit because she was not wrong about the timing. "I needed proof," I replied, which sounded pathetic even to me. She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "Of course you did, nobody wants to believe they're the other woman." Her eyes flicked to my phone again, then back to my face. Tell me exactly when you started seeing him, month and year. I told her, fighting the urge to look away. Her hand went to her mouth, then dropped back to the table. That lines up with our 3rd anniversary, she said, almost to herself. This whole time, I thought we were just going through busy phases. She picked up the paper again and focused on the hotel list. Her finger ran down the page, stopping on holiday weekends. He spent this holiday with me and my parents, she breathed. He told you what? That he needed space, that he hated travel. He said he had to cover for a coworker, I answered quietly. My face felt hot and strangely detached from the rest of me. He sent me a picture from his brother's place so I wouldn't worry. Her eyes flashed, and for the first time we shared the same expression. So he built a whole second story, she said slowly. One where he was single with you and loyal with me. She let out a shaky breath and pushed the paper back to me. I believe you, I hate that I do, but I do. Relief and guilt crashed together in my chest. I had wanted her to believe me, but not to watch her break. Why tell me? She asked, more tired than angry now. You could have just left him and moved on with your life. Because you didn't get that choice, I answered, words coming faster. I could walk away and he would still stand there in a suit. He would still marry you and call it a fresh start, and I couldn't live with that. That last part came out hoarse, because it was the only thing I was sure about. She stared at me for a long second, breathing unevenly. Then she leaned forward, elbows on the table, ring in the light. What do you want me to do with this information? She asked. Call off my wedding based on a stranger's folder. I want you to see everything first, I said, forcing myself to stay steady. Die. Then you decide, but I also think you should see how he reacts. Because he's very good at making you question your own eyes. I knew that from painful personal experience, and she could see it. Show me more, she said finally, jaw set, no tremor this time. So I did. I scrolled through messages that matched her dates. Cancelled plans with me that lined up with family dinners with her. Little lies that formed a pattern once you saw them side by side. At one point she grabbed a napkin and wiped her face quickly. I'm not crying over him, she muttered, angry at herself. I'm angry I didn't notice. I'm angry he thought I never would. I understood that specific anger too well. We sat there for what felt like an hour, building a map. Her memories, my notes, his digital trail, all crisscrossing. Every new overlap killed another excuse we might have given him. By the end, there was nothing left to explain away. Finally, she pulled in a breath and straightened her shoulders. He doesn't get to handle this in private, she said. He lied in private, he can choke on the truth in front of everyone. I watched her and realized she was already shifting into something harder. What are you thinking? I asked, cautious now. She clicked her ring against the table, thinking, eyes narrowed. We have an engagement party this weekend, she answered. Family, friends, coworkers, his people, my people, all in one room. My pulse kicked up again because I knew where she was going. You want to tell them there, I said, just to be sure. I want him to see what it looks like when everything he built collapses, she replied. And I want you there, or he'll call you a jealous ex and walk away clean. The thought of walking into that room made my stomach churn. Facing him one-on-one already scared me, doing it with an audience was worse. But the idea of not going and letting him rewrite this made me feel sicker. Okay, I said quietly, tell me where to be and when. We'll say you're a friend from work, she decided, wiping under her eyes. No one will question it, they know I meet people through my job. She asked for my number and I gave it to her, feeling weirdly formal. This will be ugly, she warned, voice steady now, for both of us. I know, I answered, and for once I really did. When we stood up to leave, we both hesitated. It felt wrong to just walk away like we had discussed normal things. She surprised me by pulling me into a quick, rough hug. This is going to ruin my life for a while, she murmured against my shoulder. But it probably saved the rest of it. I did not trust myself to say anything smart back. So I just nodded and let her go first, watching her ring flash as she left. The day of the party, my phone buzzed with a short message. Tonight, 7, wear something you can move in, no heels. That last part made me snort despite everything, which helped release some tension. I stared at the address and wondered how many lies were packed inside that place. Getting dressed felt like putting on armor that did not quite fit. I picked something plain, nothing that would draw attention before I was ready. The folder on my phone was backed up in 3 places, just in case. I added one printed copy of the worst pages and tucked it into my bag. When I got there, cars lined the street and music rolled out faintly. I almost turned around at the gate, foot already shifting backward. Then my phone lit up with a new text from her. "Come in, I'm by the bar, he doesn't know you're here yet." Inside, groups of people clustered with drinks in their hands. Laughter, clinking glasses, the usual sound of people celebrating something hopeful. I spotted her first, dress fitted, makeup sharp, ring still on. If you had not seen her at that cafe, you would think she was thrilled. She caught my eye and gave a tiny nod, nothing more. A man standing beside her, clearly a relative, was talking with broad gestures. Ethan wasn't near her yet, which gave me a second to breathe. I walked over to an empty corner and pretended to check messages. After a few minutes, she slipped away and joined me, back to the wall. "You okay?" she asked, scanning the room rather than my face. "Not really," I told her, too tired to pretend. "Good," she said, "me neither. Fear will keep us from doing something stupid." "What's the plan?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "He's scheduled to make a toast later," she answered, eyes still moving. "Right after that, before he can step away, we move in." Hearing her say scheduled about a toast made something in me twist again. "He'll deny everything," I warned her, because of course he would. "That's why you're here," she replied. "He can call me emotional, he can't explain away someone standing in the same room." She straightened her shoulders and walked back into the crowd before I could answer. I stayed near the back, watching, waiting. He appeared finally, movie. NG through the guests with that easy charm. Smiling, hugging people, clapping shoulders like the star of his own event. When his gaze brushed past me, he did not recognize me at first. I watched the moment it clicked. His expression froze for half a second, then smoothed out again. He changed direction, heading toward me with a drink in hand. I braced myself, hand in my bag, fingers on the edge of the envelope. "What are you doing here?" he asked, almost friendly, almost. "Networking," I said flatly, matching his fake tone. "I know your fiancé from work chats." I watched the word fiancé land on his face like a weight. His smile tightened, not reaching his eyes. "You're confused," he murmured, stepping closer, trying to herd me aside. "We really shouldn't talk here, this isn't appropriate." "Yeah," I replied, "being here at all is not appropriate for you." He lowered his voice, jaw clenched. "If this is about whatever you think you saw, we can discuss it later." "There won't be a later," I answered, keeping my voice low but clear. "You've used up all your laters with both of us." He opened his mouth to snap back, but a spoon hit a glass nearby. The room shifted, people turning toward the small stage at the front. One of her relatives raised his drink and called for attention. "Let's hear from the happy couple," he announced, grinning wide. Ethan swore under his breath and backed away from me. He moved toward the front, plastering his celebration face back on. Chloe joined him, expression perfect, hand resting lightly on his arm. Only I could see the tension in her fingers from where I stood. He started his speech with some story about how they first met. People laughed at the right parts, nodded at the sweet phrases. I heard the words, but my brain focused on his rhythm. He sounded exactly like our early text threads, just with a microphone. Then he shifted to talking about their future together. "Can't wait to start this next chapter with you," he said. That was our cue. Chloe's grip on his arm tightened once. She took the microphone from him smoothly and turned to the room. "Thanks for coming," she began, voice steady, almost too steady. "There's something important I need to share tonight." I felt the entire space sharpen, like the air leaned forward. Ethan looked confused for half a beat, then wary. "I've spent the last few weeks finding out who I'm actually engaged to," she continued. Murmurs rose immediately, people glancing at each other. She lifted her hand for quiet without looking away from him. "And I learned I'm not the only one in a long-term relationship with him." The noise in the room died so fast it almost rang. Ethan tried to grab the microphone back, but she shifted out of reach. That's enough, he muttered, attempting a calm tone. No, I don't think it is, she replied, eyes locked on his. She scanned the crowd until she found me and motioned me forward. My legs felt heavy, but they moved. Walking through that wall of eyes was one of the hardest things I've done. When I reached the front, I set my bag on the small table beside them. This is Maya, she said to the room, not to me. She's been dating Ethan for years, overlapping with me, overlapping with this engagement. A wave of whispers hit us like a tide. I could see his parents' faces, pale and disbelieving, near the edge of the crowd. This is ridiculous, Ethan snapped, now mask slipping. You're ruining our night over some crazy woman's fantasy. He jabbed a finger toward me like I was a problem, not a person. That gesture did more damage to his image than anything I could have said. I didn't look at him when I spoke. I have location logs, receipts, messages, and photos, I said to the room. All with dates that match times he told each of us different stories. I pulled the envelope out and laid the pages on the table. Chloe picked one up and read a line aloud. Hotel reservation, check-in, same weekend he told my family he had extra shifts. She dropped it back onto the pile like trash. Another one, weekend he told her he was sick and unavailable. Stop reading that, Ethan barked, reaching for the papers. I moved first and slid them just out of his reach. If they're meaningless, why are you panicking? I asked quietly. A few guests closer to the front actually nodded at that. This is personal, he argued, trying to regain some authority. We should talk about this privately, not in front of everyone. You lost the right to privacy when you turned us into a schedule, Chloe answered. Her voice shook now, but the words were sharp. He turned to her, dropping his public smile completely. Baby, listen, you know I've been under pressure, I made mistakes. This woman is exaggerating what happened between us. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Don't call me that, she said, pulling her fingers away. You told me you were faithful and exclusive the whole tea. May. You told her the same thing, the dates don't lie. Her relatives watched, some angry, some stunned, some already siding with her. He shifted tactics so fast it made my head spin. Okay, fine, I hooked up with her a few times, it was a stupid phase. It's over now, and it doesn't change how I feel about you. He looked out over the crowd, playing the remorseful man under pressure. I wasn't a phase, I cut in because that word set me off. We were together on holidays, weekends, trips for years. Ask him why my name never came up if it was nothing. My voice shook, but the anger steadied it enough to land. Someone from his family stepped forward, older, clearly furious. Is this true? They demanded, staring at him. Were you seeing this woman behind Chloe's back the entire time? Ethan's mouth opened and closed like he was choosing which version to sell. I didn't cheat on Chloe, he blurted finally, going with the strangest angle. That's what you're not understanding, I never broke it off with her. I just compartmentalized, it doesn't count the same way. You could feel the confusion wash across the room at that logic. Chloe laughed, then an ugly wreck sound. So you're saying you didn't betray me because you never stopped loving me. You just built a second life and forgot to mention it. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she kept going. He reached for her again, desperate now. I was going to end it, I swear, after the wedding. I didn't want to hurt anyone before things were stable. That sentence might be the most twisted one I've ever heard. You were going to break up with me after marrying her, I repeated. Do you even hear yourself? The guests didn't even bother hiding their reactions at that point. I saw someone in the back shake their head and walk out. Chloe took off her ring slowly, carefully, as if it were tight. She held it up for a second, studying it, her hand very still. Then she set it on the table next to the mess of papers. Gasps moved through the crowd like a wave meeting the shore. This isn't mine anymore, she said, voice clearer than before. This belongs to the man who thought two women were better than one. He can figure out what to do with it now that everyone knows. She stepped away from him, straightening her spine, not looking back. Wait, he called after her, reaching out, panic rising. We can work through this, counseling, time apart, anything. Don't throw everything away over some dramatic scene. He glanced around, realizing too late that the scene was the only thing he had left. She stopped at the edge of the crowd and turned once. "I'm not throwing anything away," she answered. "I'm just refusing to spend my life recycling your lies." Then she walked out, several friends and relatives close behind. He spun toward me like I was the last person left. "This is your fault," he snarled low and wild. "You could have just broken up with me like a normal person." His face was red, composed persona gone, just anger left. I felt strangely calm by then, like I had run out of fear. "I did break up with you," I answered. "You just found out in public because you built this mess in public. You don't get to blame me for cleaning up what you spilled." He took a step toward me and someone from his family moved between us. "We're done here," they said firmly, eyes cold on him. "You need to leave before you make this worse." For once he listened, or maybe he just had nowhere else to stand. He grabbed the ring off the table, crumpled some of the papers and left. The door shut behind him harder than necessary, making a few people jump. The room sat in stunned silence for a few heartbeats, then broke into fragments. Small groups formed, voices rising, people taking sides or just trying to process. I stood alone near the front, suddenly very aware I was not part of this community. My job was done as far as the truth went. Staying to answer questions felt wrong and weird and maybe unsafe. So I picked up my bag, left the remaining papers where they lay, and headed for the exit. Outside, the air felt cooler, easier to breathe. I stepped onto the sidewalk and my phone buzzed almost immediately. Unknown number first, then another, then my voicemail notification. I knew without looking who it was. I walked a block before I checked. 3 missed calls and a string of messages from him. Everything from "we need to talk" to "you ruined my life" to "please answer." I watched them arrive in real time, like a tantrum typed out. For a second, the old version of me twitched. The one who wanted to explain, smooth things, make him understand. Then I opened our chat thread, scrolled once and hit block. Silence replaced the buzzing, and it felt better than any apology he could invent. A second later, another text came through from a different number. This time it was from her. "Thank you," the message read. "It hurts like hell. But thank you." I stared at it for a second, then wrote back. "You didn't deserve any of this," I typed. "Take care of yourself. If you need more proof later, I still have it." She replied with just one more line. "I believe you, that's enough for now." I put my phone away and kept walking, no idea where I was going. I just knew I was not going back to his place, not even to collect things alone. Later, I would get a friend to go with me, or leave half of it behind. In that moment, distance mattered more than stuff. Looking back now, I won't pretend I became some wise, healed person overnight. I still have days where I wonder how I missed it for so long. I still catch myself replaying little moments that look different under new light. But I also remember standing at that front table, not staying quiet. That was the line for me. Not the cheating, not the hotels, not even the double life. The line was refusing to let him write the ending by himself. I picked up the pen in the loudest room he had, and I used it.